Hello and welcome to Moldav. I'm your host, Lewis Nichols. This is Dresden's Tale, Episode 2, a YouTube channel where we explore the adventures of a young dwarf named Dresden Fane as he explores the world around him and becomes a steadily more powerful warrior. Not powerful at all yet, though. When we last left off, we were doing the prologue. We explored a little bit about Dresden as he was beat in a fist fight for a bunk. Perfectly normal happenings in the Keld culture. And we talked a little bit about his visit to the theater in the city of Parnsilia where he lives. And this is chapter 1. It's going to take place about 6 months after that, on the 30th day of Ebba, 2051 years after the fall. If you ever want to know about things like the calendar or what dwarves are like or the history of the world, we have a supplemental series called Nuts and Bolts where we talk about the physics of the world, the rules, the logic of everything. But here we try to stick to the story as much as possible. Sometimes that'll mean reading the book, reading the text, the story that I've written. Sometimes, like today, it's going to be much more of an overview. That's because there's a lot of exposition in chapter 1. So if I'm going to do exposition anyway, I might as well do an overview rather than a word for word, something a little more suitable for YouTube. Now, if you are interested in the book itself, it is available on Kindle for download. It's as inexpensive as I could make it, and that is one way that you can support me, is by buying a copy and taking a look without too much of an investment. I would appreciate it very much for anybody that wanted to do something like that, but it's not necessary at all. I am more than happy to have you here listening to the YouTube podcast. The scene opens with Dresden in that bunk that he was relegated to after losing his challenge for the top bunk. But at this point, he survived the long, cold winter without too much discomfort. And so the bottom bunk is a little bit of a blessing because it is definitely getting warmer. The 30th day of Ebba is the last day of spring, and it is warm. But the uncomfortable heat is not what is on Dresden's mind. The very next day, he starts his life of adventure. He's been bred for it. He's been taught his whole life. By this time, he would have participated in warrior ceremonies, just everything from wrestling as a younger lad to the gutting of pigs and different activities to get a warrior used to blood and discomfort. He's not so much nervous and anticipating as he is a predator waiting for his very first hunt. Some of that's training. Some of that's kind of a cultural brainwashing. It's an extremely religious culture, and so people have it born in their heads their whole life that certain things are expected. And certainly being in the bunkhouse with 15 other beds and a lot of people that he spent several years with, other warriors all pumping each other up. You know, they're not all going on the same mission, but still there's a lot of boasting and everybody wants to look good for everybody else. And at the moment, the bunkhouse isn't particularly conducive to sleep anyway. Dresden's buddy Hongus has snuck a woman from the main house into the bunkhouse, and they're making some noise in his bunk. You've got some power snores going on, and you just have a lot of warriors generally nervous about what they have going on tomorrow. You know, it's a normal world. Everybody's a little bit different, depending upon their mission. You know, you have some people pacing, you have some people tossing and turning, And yeah, you do have some people sleeping. The bunkhouse is part of the Nanok estate. Master Nanok is a high priest. He's a powerful person in town. That's one reason Dresden has it as well as he does, and that'll all reveal itself later. Now, Dresden doesn't always necessarily feel like that being part of a big house is any kind of advantage. In a way, he often feels like he's picked on a little bit, that he has more responsibility, that he's held to a higher standard. Now, finally, he gets tired of the noise, tired of his own impatience, and decides to get up out of bed and go outside for a little fresh air. He doesn't even bother getting dressed. He just heads outside and heads for the latrine. It's not so much that he needs to go, but he decides that'd be a good excuse if somebody caught him being out and around when he really wasn't supposed to be. So when he gets close, he avoids it, finds a place with a little bit of light, and he pulls out a letter from his grandfather. So now I will read that letter to you. I only saw after you for a few years after your father died. I did the best I could. Been proud to see you grow up in that house in Nanok. Don't think I could have helped you much anyway. You got a whole different world than me. Won't tell another story about living 100 years in Patronsburg and the shit under them damn popes. You'll do good. Always been a strong one, you. Even just as a little one. Stay away from them damn females. You'll be okay. Still can't stand them in the militias, even if some of them are family. Dumb shit idea if you ask me. Don't get all blinded by coins, and don't chase those females. That's the best two things I can tell you. It got me to 100 years old, and whatever I am, 70 I guess. I guess don't let that cousin Piran of yours be the Fane that everybody remembers. Don't mean to go on. Luck to you, kid. Don't be a dumb shit. Listen to your leaders, and you'll do just fine. Your Pawpaw Fane. So, yeah, he's probably not an Okie, but you might have heard part of my Oklahoma accent come out there. Whenever I tend to talk in character, it comes out naturally. But so anyway, Dresden mumbles a little bit about how he did believe that his pawpaw had always been there to help him out. He notices a guard looking at him that questioning him, talking to himself, and he decides just to avoid the questions and just goes back to the bunkhouse. The last thing he wanted was any trouble just before his big day. So he gets back into the bunkhouse, not particularly trying to be quiet, full of all those teenagers, most of them very young, men and women, probably from the youngest and around, maybe 15 to 16 years old, maybe a few a little bit older into their 20s. But basically, this is where the lower warrior members of the house live. It was the weight of that future responsibility that kept Dresden awake. You see, even as a young warrior, Dresden was worried about all the responsibilities and things that he was expected to accomplish. A lot of it was the indoctrination. A lot of it was just watching too much theater, going to the plays, watching all the things these great heroes did, and wanting to do the same thing. And that's something that is a characteristic of Dresden throughout the story, is how seriously he takes his responsibilities. Responsible or not, it was just some of the same old things that we would expect that got Dresden started. Met a girl about 1.5 years ago named Marcy, little thrill seeker. Talked her and some of his friends into making forays down into the city sewer system. And when they got caught, he took a significant amount of the heat for it. But he took his punishment well and was selected by Master Nanok to go through some additional training. And in fact, he was trained in magic, the art of Ziblich. After that training was finished, and actually about a month before this chapter begins, he was formally enrolled, like most starting warriors are, into the militia of Biona, the goddess of armies, of organized combat. And now he was just hours away from his first assignment. He was pretty happy with himself, and finally was just starting to fall asleep whenever his buddy Hongus and his girlfriend woke him up again, getting noisy. Somebody threw a shoe across the bunk, trying to shut him up. And as eager as they were all for some sleep, just as the bunkhouse started to quiet down, the first morning bells started going off, and it was time to get up and start the adventure. So we don't jump ahead 6 months again. We just jump ahead one day, the first day of Ursa, the first day of summer. So our next episode will be chapter 2, when Dresden really gets started. And thank you all very much for joining me here. I hope you continue to join me. Dresden has a heck of a lot of adventures along the way, and I think those of you who are interested in fantasy adventure will want to be part of this. You can support me in all the usual ways. Hit like, share the post. Do that kind of stuff. Then I have a Patreon page if you want to come visit, and come see me follow me on Twitter. In the meantime, I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful day, and I will see you next time.